Hi, everybody. My name is Jackson Flores. I'm a senior solutions engineer here at Itential. And today I got a really cool thing that I've been playing around with that I wanted to show. So I've been playing and doing some training on around AI tooling and agents and all those kinds of things. And the latest buzz is MCP. So I have been building some code around to interface MCP with the Itential platform. Itential platform has a lot of API endpoints that are very useful to expose all the platform functionality from discrete functions like running commands on devices all the way to executing entire automation and orchestration jobs. So today we're going to show a little bit of that, and our mission today is to kind of have it, trigger a job from our LLM here. I have a basic interface here. I'm using Klein in Visual Studio Code, and I have plugged in my Anthropic Claude Sonnet model. And I also have some MCP tools that I have pre-configured into that Cloud has access to that can expose different platform functionality. I also have my dev environment here. I have an API endpoint that I have built in the Attention platform that does some basic router interface troubleshooting or router port troubleshooting. One of the things that this has is, and the Attention platform lets me do, is build dedicated endpoints for every single job that I have, and also specify the post body schema as a strict schema to launch this job. What this is going to allow me to do is it's going to allow the LLM to infer what the actual payload is to actually launch this job and launch it successfully. So it can actually, do a lot of very cool things with it. So let's go ahead and jump into it. Um, so let's go ahead and ask it what workflows are available in the automation platform. Let's hit that there. So let's see. So one of the things that you'll notice is as soon as I go ahead and ask it a question, it already wants to looks at all the tools that are available in the platform tool server, which is that MCP server, and it finds that there's a bunch of functionality here, right? It's got get trigger endpoints that shows the entry points for the workflows of the automations. It also sees that it has the ability to get the list of devices or the inventory that's managed by the platform. It can get command templates, which are used for show commands, which will be used for all this. And it'll also get adapters health. Let's go ahead, and I have to pre-approve every single one of these. So let's go ahead and go through that. Right. The cool thing is that I can actually just give it the entire output, and this will actually go ahead and figure out, hey, a lot of useful stuff from here. So by doing the get trigger endpoints alone, it's already know that it found a bunch of useful stuff, right? It's got manual triggers, it's got API endpoint triggers, it's got a bunch of those. So it already found a lot of those, and it has it in its context memory. So now let's go ahead and start asking interesting questions to see where we can get. Um, uh, on those workflows, is there one that we can use to troubleshoot? Shoot router ports. Like, yeah, there you go. Let's see what happens. The one cool thing about Klein is you can actually go through the entire reasoning here. So yeah, okay. So once I asked it the question, it already identified two of all the. I think it found 25 or so. It has the router port troubleshooting workflow here, and it also has the XR port troubleshooting. Look at the coolest thing about all of this is based on what I had done with the API, and actually this one I didn't do it, but it already figured out. The LLM can actually reason through what parameters are required to go ahead and trigger this job. So we're going to focus on this one right here. So it says the workflow is designed to troubleshoot issues with the specific router ports. It requires the following parameters: device name, device interface, auto remediate, whether we're going to do that or not. And you can execute it by using the endpoint, API endpoint trigger with route name, router port troubleshooting. Awesome. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's launch the router port troubleshooting one. But let me pick all the parameters. So I need to tell it, and a lot of times, the LLMs will make some assumptions. You can actually clean this up with some prompt engineering if you're going to do an agent. But in this case, since we're kind of developing this, we have a clean LLM agent with no context memory and it doesn't have any prompt engineering. So we're going to go ahead and do it all from scratch. So in this case, I had to tell it, hey, let's go and launch the router port troubleshooting, but let me pick all the parameters. So now, based on that, it says, okay, I need to find out what devices to use, what device name parameter, how can I fulfill that parameter? I have a tool that says get devices, so let's go ahead and launch that. So yeah, cool, let's go ahead and do that. The most fascinating thing about this whole thing is the fact that it can just reason through all out. It can say, hey, I need these parameters, which ones can I use? Or how can I go and figure that out, right? How can I go and fulfill that? This is the coolest part. It actually lets you do, selections in here. So in this case, it says, okay, select the device and it lets me pick. Now I don't want to do this interface because that's the management port. So I actually want to do another interface. It says, okay, pick an interface or let me pick another one. So let's see. I'm going to specify, and I know that I can do this for a fact. So let's see if I want to use device. So let's use this device, which is the one that I want to focus on. But let's see if we can find what interfaces are available on it. Let's see what it does now. That's just reasoning through it. So now it's figured out, okay, the user wants to use this device, but we need to see what interfaces are available first. I can use the run command template tool to get information about the interfaces on this device. This is just extremely cool. It just knows the things that it can try to kind of obtain more information. So it did that, and this is actually the right thing that it has to do. It's not pre-programmed. This is all, we started a new chat from scratch. And now it's also figured out that there's 3 command templates that have the show IP and brief command, which would show a brief summary of the interfaces. So now it's going to go ahead and let me know, or the second one, which also does the same thing. So I'm going to go ahead and let it do that. This is going to take a second, but this will actually give the LLM the entire output of the show IP and brief command. And now the LLM will have enough context in order to go ahead and trigger that job. So now, effectively, we got the response, which is the entire output from the device. It looks a little messy, but it can read it. So now it has a list of all the interfaces that are on the device. So let's see, which interface would you like to troubleshoot, and should auto remediation be enabled? So I want, let's see, let's pick Gigabit Ethernet 1.172 and set to true or false, so you can specify your own. So let's pick this one. So I can just click on it. Okay. And now it's figured out, okay, the user selected 1.72 and auto remediation true. So now it knows that it already inferred that it can build the entire payload based on the information that it has. And this is exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to run trigger endpoint, which that's the right tool to launch an automation or an orchestration workflow. This is the tool that this is the actual route that it's going to use for that. And this is the actual payload. So the device, the interface, and auto remediate. So let's go ahead and run that. And it did it. So let's keep an eye on this. And let's see what happens. And then we can actually go into the platform. Okay, so it launched the router for troubleshooting workflow with all those parameters. And now it actually figured out that this is an async call into the platform. So it captured the job ID so that it can come back and check the status of the job. So I go ahead and did that after I approved it. Let's see. My job is completed. There it goes. So I ran the job. It completed it successfully. It says the troubleshooting process detected errors in the interface, and since auto remediation was enabled, the system took corrective action. So blah 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 on device shows errors. Itential platform reset the interface, and this is actually a message that comes from the workflow. So it knew enough to go ahead and fetch all the information that it required in order to launch the automation that we wanted to launch. It also knew what parameters to capture. And this is the other cool part, is that it actually, from the document, from this response that it got back from the API, it actually was able to document the job in a very summarized way, right? It says workflow executed several steps. First, it ran the interface checks to identify issues. Then it evaluated the results and determined remediation was needed. Since auto remediation was enabled, set to true, it generated remediation commands. Finally, it executed those commands on the interface. The entire process took approximately 18 seconds, and the interface should now be functioning properly. The auto remediation feature successfully addressed the detected issues without requiring manual intervention. So this is one of those things that's extremely cool. Just the fact that with a few prompts, we're able to actually entirely launch an automation that we don't necessarily know how to launch from scratch, right? If I were to set up a Postman payload, that takes me a minute to do. Also highlights the fact that by having these MCP tools access a properly structured API lets me add a lot of power on top of the LLM, where there's no hallucinations, no assumptions that can be made because the API is already documented. And also, something that's not entirely apparent here is that those accounts that I use to interact with that API have proper RBAC controls, so I can actually choose to expose certain automation and orchestration workflows while hiding others from the LLM agent. All right, this is super awesome. This is very cool, and we'll keep playing with this and see what other things we can do. Thanks for tuning in.